Welcome to Nelson All Over. I am Nelson. I am here with McKay Anderson, the board game critic, or the lead, and not or, the lead designer of Backfire Games. And tonight we are here to talk to you all about game design. How are you doing, McKay?
I am doing well. I'm exhausted.
Yeah?
Day 3. Is it known that we're at GenCon?
Yeah, we're at GenCon.
Day 3 of GenCon. It's crazy. There's a whole lot of emotions when a convention wraps up. It's kind of exciting, honestly, because you've seen a lot of games, but you haven't played a ton, and so it's okay, now I get to go and I get to resume playing games. And so yeah, there's a lot of, but it's also sad to see it wrap up and come to a close. I won't get to see Nelson for way too long.
Until PAX Unplugged, which you will be at.
Yes, I'm very hopeful that I'll be at. I'm planning on it.
Yeah, definitely should. So, okay, before we get into the game design, I have to ask, what has been the highlight of the Gen Con? That could be a game, that could be an experience.
Yeah, it's always seeing people. I always think that there's just going to be some kind of a game that I see or a booth that I visit that is just going to knock my socks off and be just phenomenal. And that's never the case. So if you haven't been to conventions, I wouldn't expect to be wowed. It's like walking into a variety of game stores, and the designers or the publishers happen to be there, and it's not as special as I kind of expected to be each time. Although but it's the people that I've gotten to meet. So the guy from Featherstone Games, apology, I forget names. I called him Dalton for the half of our relationship. So
even after we had met.
Oh yeah, we had met in person, and I still called him Dalton.
I'm just too nice to correct him.
So I met the guy from Featherstone Games. I've met several designers, and honestly, our dinner last night that we had as the Board Vengers was just so quality. Walked away from that just man.
So much fun.
I just love people, so.
Yeah, especially in this industry, people are great.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, but we are here to talk about board game design, which you have 2 games designed.
Yes.
On BGG at least.
Yeah.
That have been published.
So I was wait. Yes.
And so this is, McKay has been on the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast before, which is where I remember that stat from. I don't actually remember what the game was called.
That's okay, I'll take you through it.
Yeah, but how long have you been designing games for?
So I remember, let's go way back,
okay,
right?
Yeah, let's do it.
I remember when I was 8 or 9, I had this idea for just a basic exploration game. It had modular tiles that were this big, and I think it came about because my dad worked construction, and so he brought home they were cut off from some kind of construction job, but they were all the same size and they were big squares. So I spent time drawing a grid on each of them, very D&D-esque.
Okay.
I didn't even know about D&D at the time, and I cut felt out for patches of grass and water, and the idea was that as you explored, you would add new ones, and then you got to decide
This is when you were 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
This is more involved than any game I've ever thought of.
But it didn't really have rules, is the thing. It was
better.
just and then I took wooden dowels, a 1-inch wooden dowel, and I got a Dremel tool and I carved characters out of these 1-inch and so they were big. I mean, we're talking
awesome.
wizard's chests, chunky guys that I had carved out. I had a dwarf and an elf and stuff, and that's as far as it went. There was no formalization, and I think that's why it stopped, is because I didn't know that you had to have a set of rules to limit what you could or could not do.
Yeah.
And to me, what was exciting was I can do anything in this.
Very creative.
Yeah, and so, but then it didn't ever become anything. So anyway, that gathered dust on the shelf. I kind of forgot about it for a long time. And that's when I would say that's the first time I kind of started about this idea of I could make games. Then I went to college and graduated in industrial design, became an industrial designer, which is also product design. Some people ask, does that mean you design factories? I'm no, that means I design products. And so...
Yeah, for anyone who didn't know that, anyone.
So that's where these 2 worlds came together: a passion for board games, a passion for products, problem solving, designing, making things both beautiful and functional at the same time. All of this should sound like a beautiful combination for board games as just this point of fascination for me.
Excellent. Yeah. And so the industrial design, did you go into that thinking, hey, I want to design board games, or is that kind of like, oh, hey, I can use this to help me design board games?
Not necessarily. So I started into the program. It's kind of funny because everything needs industrial design. You have cameras, you have doorknobs, you have airplanes, cars, like everything has industrial design, at least principles wrapped into it, whether that company employs industrial designers directly or not. And so partway through that, I was looking at companies. Our junior year, we took a trip to Boston and visited several places, and I requested that we visit Hasbro because I was interested in toys and games. And that's where I met some people. I submitted an application, got an internship, and this was the third internship I had done. I had done shoes, I had done medical devices, which was horrible. Just a bad experience. And then I did Hasbro, and of those three, obviously toys and games were the most fun and the most colorful people, just the best, I don't know, the best experience I had. So that's just what I pursued, although it wasn't my goal going into it. But now looking back, it's like, I think in the back of my head, or like cosmic design, God, whatever you believe in, I think I was just kind of like meant for it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really cool. And so you've worked at Hasbro?
Yeah.
Was that right after school?
Yes.
Okay.
So I actually graduated while working full time for Hasbro.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So that
must have been a very busy couple of months.
It was. So I worked at Hasbro as an intern between my junior and senior year, and then I had to go back for my senior year, but they were like, we want you to keep working for us. After that first semester, they were like, okay, we need you on site, or we need to hire somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I did some fancy footwork, games, social negotiation and stuff, and got my professors to agree to let me do school remote while I was working for Hasbro.
Yeah.
So the second half of my senior year was actually done while working full-time for Hasbro, and then graduated and just rolled into the full-time job.
Yeah. Okay, so you figured out that this is kind of your passion, right? And so you worked at Hasbro designing board games.
Yep.
And then now you are the owner, operator, co-owner of your own company, Backfire Games.
Yeah.
And so this is not just a design. You all do the design, but you also do the publishing.
Yeah.
So where did the publishing part come in?
It's a really good question. I've always been interested in business. For a long time, I thought entrepreneurship was just what I would want to do. The tricky thing with me is I get bored really fast, and I like to do a lot of different things. So I have really enjoyed the idea of designing a game and then getting to do the business side of it, getting to set up the online Kickstarter, and just getting to move around. And I think eventually, as Backfire grows, and as we get more employees and stuff, I do think I'll transition to more of like a management and do probably like high-level game design, then kind of like pass it down, is what I would expect. And then I'll probably still get to jump around from graphics to playtesting to payroll and
get to do all of the things and you can, shift.
I'm hoping that's what it ends up as. I know a lot of people like to dive into I do this one thing really well.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more of a jack of all trades master.
Trying to do everything.
I can do everything, but nothing like super well. I would say the one thing I do super well is just being very critical of game design and graphics and art and stuff.
A la the board game critic.
Yeah, yes, that is why I chose the name.
Perfect. Okay, so I don't even know how to ask this question. How do you start designing a board game?
There are a couple ways.
Yeah.
So let's take Snack Time, which is one of the published games that we have. That one came art first, which I know was probably not advisable or typical, but I found an artist and I was like, this art needs to be in a game. And so I actually designed the game around the art, trying to showcase the art in the best way possible to really make the theme sing. The other way, I did a game design class from Harvard, and
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really fascinating.
Is that like an online thing? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
no, it's okay.
about this.
It's online. I think it was free when I took it. It was part of their continuing ed community outreach stuff.
Huh.
it was janky because you couldn't hear like questions that the students were asking and stuff. It was just like a voice recording of the professor each day of the class. But a lot of cool things. One thing that I did adopt from that is focusing on emotion. Trying to hone into what do I want the players to feel during this experience. And I've noticed that I've become more critical of games since then, knowing that like when I play a game, I don't feel good things, or I feel this very static emotion. It's like I want to go through these loops and this roller coaster of excitement and then like frustration and then feeling clever for like, so just trying to map that experience of like what feelings do I want to take the player through has definitely informed my design philosophy. There are a lot of games that I'll get a little ways into just like a concept and be like, I'm not getting them to feel anything. We're not hitting on excitement. We're not hitting on frustration. And honestly, like doom and gloom and just like this constant decay of like, we're all gonna die is also like a fine emotion to design around. I mean, Exploding Kittens, for example, is complete anxiety and frustration. Like that is what they dialed into.
Yep. So you're trying to invoke an emotion in whoever is playing your game. And that good or bad emotion, right? You're just trying to solicit a response from them. Okay, that's an interesting way to do that. So now, like when you are thinking of a new game, how do you? Or okay, let me back up. How many of the games, or how many undesigned games, or like thoughts do you have, or have you had?
Oh geez, definitely in the hundreds. I have I have a list in my phone that's just called game ideas, and some of them are I wake up from a dream, like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I just like had a dream explaining a full board game to someone. Like I literally, that was my dream last night, was teaching a board game.
That's awesome.
And I try to like write it down as best I can, and it's usually complete garbage. But a lot of times there's like a nugget in there that's like, I want to kind of explore that. A lot of them are ones that I think of this thing and then it's weird weeks later, I'll be like, oh, that exists.
I played that game.
That's frustrating. It was funny, Dune Imperium, before I played that one, I think it was months before, I was like, I want a worker placement game that is dictated by your deck building. That like the cards that you have say where you can place your workers. I thought it was brilliant, and maybe it was brilliant because I don't think I got that idea from anywhere else. But then I played Dune Imperium and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was talking about.
Oh, that's so. How do you know if it's a winner? Like, how do you decide? Like with Snack Time, how did you decide to pursue that one?
It's hard because I don't think it's wise to say it has to be amazing to like make it to later stages. For example, our first one that we shot for with Backfire Games was called the Plunder Games, and I think it's still going to happen. But we designed it to be, we started out and we're like, this is going to be simple. It's going to be quick and dirty, and it's just to like get our feet wet and start figuring out things as a company.
Gotcha. Okay.
We got a little ways in and we started like finding artists and having art made, and we're like, we've designed it too small for what this theme is. And so we kind of took a step back and we're like, let's wait. Let's like develop this theme. Let's develop the story and see what it turns into. And now it's kind of on the shelf. I was like, I think we need to fully revisit it as far as like, what do we want it to be? What's like its maximum potential?
Gotcha.
But then Snack Time, we're like, you know what? Let's take this guy's art. Let's do something awesome with it. Roll and writes were kind of a new category for me. And so I was like, let's try a roll and write. And it kind of slowly became something. It was a little bit more of like, we took a couple stabs at what it should be, and then it kind of grew into it. Whereas other ones, sometimes it's just like, yes, I love it. Our third game, which is in current development, it was a really weird journey that took a very long time to get to the point of like, yes, it's something, but now I'm like, push everything aside. This is what I'm most excited about now.
Is this the print and play?
No. Oh. So this will be.
Well, this is new.
Codename is Black Forest. It's
okay.
It started out. I was working on some games to pitch to publishers, And I got this one far enough along, and I submitted it, and they were like, "Oh, we don't necessarily like the theme." So I took it back, I changed the theme, and I was like, "No, it's mine now." Like, and I think I just hit the mic, so I said, "No, it's mine now. You can cut that." And it's sometimes like that it's like when the theme and the mechanics like just blend in a way that's like now it is perfect. So I'm actually very excited to continue pursuing that one.
Okay, so this may not be a fair question, and may vary pretty significantly, but like, what is kind of the timeline when you think about designing a game from conception, when you had the dream explaining it, all the way to putting it on Kickstarter? What does that kind of like timeline look like?
Lengthwise, it varies immensely. Depends on how many hiccups and bumps in the road you have. I would say Snack Time was faster in the sense that once we had the theme and the idea, it actually didn't take long to get to a game that felt good and there were a couple like crisis moments where we're like, we have this thing that's not great about the game, and how do we fix it? For example, when the people come out on the road, we realized that there were certain combinations on the more valuable characters that people could predict. And if you had played the game a couple times, it was like, okay, I want to reserve one with like an eye, a tentacle, and 2 teeth, because that's like the combo on this really valuable card.
Gotcha.
And so we then we adjusted to a system where it depends on what 2 cards it's sandwiched between that will change the requirements for snacking on that pedestrian.
Which is a really cool way to do that.
And it made it so much better. These crises, it's fun when you reach a crisis like that, because you know it's going to come out better on the other side. As long as you can get through it. But I would say overall timeline, it's the biggest thing that is like the unpredictable nature is that like play testing and just kind of noodling with the original design, which are like, I draw things in Illustrator or just on paper and photocopy it. You played the roll and write, or the print and play game. In its infancy, they're very messy and not appealing. And I have to hold myself back from like jumping forward to like, let's create art for this, because I get excited about what it could look like. And so I kind of have to like draw it back and like, it's not ready yet to get to that phase.
Okay. So Black Forest we're gonna see in 2-3 months, or we're talking weeks here?
I think, no, we're talking months. We are working with our artist now. And as soon as we have like good like sketches and things to show, I think we'll announce kind of like the general concept of it.
Looking forward to that.
But yeah, it's still definitely in like NDA phases where I'm not gonna like say too much about it. I'll tell you after this video. But
once I stop recording.
Once I think you're stopped recording at least.
The mics are still on.
We're probably still a couple months away from getting those teaser images.
Okay, very cool. And so my final question, if you were going to talk to someone who wanted to start board game design, what would the one piece of advice that you would give to them to get them on that runway?
I would say there are 3 general steps that I would take. I know you said one piece of advice, but my one piece of advice is 3 pieces of advice.
First wish is more wishes.
Right. I would say your first thing to do is just play a breadth of games, and not just what's popular now. You need to understand where game design has been and where it is going. You would be amazed at the games that I've played from like early 1900s that are like, I found at a yard sale, played it, and I can identify like why it's no longer a super relevant game design.
Oh, that's cool.
And I can see where it actually did win. And you can actually see a lot of modern games that it's like, it's actually not so new and not so different. It's more of just an update in theme and stuff like that. So don't shy away from like, hey, it's old, it's gone, it's dead. And honestly, if you don't have access to those games, read rule books. And I know that's not everybody's forte. I'm sorry, if you're going to be a game designer, you should probably be very comfortable reading through. You should get excited about reading a rule book. Second is, I would say just start. it's really intimidating, but like start with just cutting up pieces of paper. I would get card sleeves and just like feed in pieces of paper that you've drawn on. And one of my favorite things to do is to take an existing game and make a new game out of it. So take Uno or Skip Bow or Monopoly Deal or any of those and say, here are my components to work with. How can I flip this on its head and make it not even resemble what it originally was?
That's cool.
Using numbers and colors and card orientations and just, it forces you to get weird with it. You think of Hanabi, where you hold your cards backwards so that you can't see them, but everyone else can. And I'm like 99% sure that was them just goofing off with cards. And I know it's Antoine Bauza, who designed Seven Wonders, so obviously a very experienced game designer, but it's stuff like that like you have to be willing to just get your hands dirty and just start getting, just start having weird ideas. And then third, I would say you don't necessarily need technical training. It'll help you. School is always good, but don't feel like you're inferior or less than or can't do something because it's not your profession or it's not your job. I know I did come from that angle, and it definitely helped me, but ideas are ideas, and they come from anywhere. Get ingrained in the community and network, and if you want to be a game designer, it's hard to do the path of I designed a game and now what do I do with it? So increase your contacts in like publisher relations and all of that. The more you can do on that front, the better. And I would just say like dive in headfirst deep into games, the community, all of it. Which brings us to like keep up with Nelson all over, because he's all over the place, and like, subscribe, like do all those things, and don't be scared of it, because really super welcoming community. And you need to just like, here's your competition. Your competition is people who eat, sleep, and breathe board games constantly. Like there are those people.
Very much.
I just come to a convention and there are people who completely live for it. I've met a couple people. I'm part of a board game design group in my hometown that is like, we meet every other week and just play people's prototypes. And
well, that's cool. How'd you find that?
Facebook. I was just Googling, I was just searching around for board game design groups that I could join, and I found one that there was one, it's called the Board Game Design Guild. And I think they have chapters in multiple states. You should actually look it up, because ours is the Board Game Design Guild Utah.
Very cool.
Yeah, 3 or 4 different locations throughout Utah that you just prototype games. There's a whole like priority structure that every time you play someone's game, yours like bumps up on the priority list, and when your time comes up to play your game, you get to play, then you get bumped to the bottom.
Very nice.
So it's stuff like that. It's all out there, and it's all so accessible, more than ever before with social media, and that you just have to dive in head first if it's what you really want. Just geek out about it to the max.
Excellent. All great advice.
Thanks. It was a lot more advice than just as I kept talking. I was like, and this, and this,
and more, and this, and no, totally fine. I'm sure. If you're watching this video, unsolicited advice is very much welcome.
And if you got to this point in the video, if you watched this far, congrats. You must be somewhat serious.
Excellent. So thank you so much for joining, McKay. I'm really excited to see what is the future of Backfire Games and some of the new games that are coming out. I'm excited to get Snack Time in my hands, on my table. Soon. You said it was on a boat?
So it should be this next week. So I'm hoping that I get home from GenCon to find the final production samples. They pulled 2 random samples off the line.
Nice.
So we can verify that everything's looking good.
Great.
Pending anything that we have to change or adjust, which would be rough because it's all printed, all 3,000 copies of the game. Wow. I really hope that everything looks good. And then it'll ship like immediately after we give the approval.
Excellent. Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But thank you for joining. All of McKay's links are going to be in the description below. Make sure that you go follow him. And then Is there any way what's the best way to keep up with Backfire games and the new games that are coming out?
Yeah, Backfire Games, we've really tried to build a community-first platform where you know pretty much what's going on at in our company at all times. So Discord is the best place. I can get a permanent Discord link to you to put in the description.
That'd be great.
But on there we have an open playtester call.
Cool.
We're working on a structure where we can play testers.
Yes. Wait, nope.
Where we can pay playtesters. But right now we work up playtester packages and then we just like send them out.
Very cool.
So if you're interested in playtesting or being involved, we're very open and transparent. Join our Discord. Say hi, tell us that you're interested in playtesting or pay testing, whichever one, and we'll get you a package and we basically change your administrator privileges so that you can jump in and start seeing all of our like proprietary information and stuff like that.
Very cool. So thank you so very much. Make sure you go follow him. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk
Anytime.
to you next time.
Yep.
See ya.